Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round 5 of the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing series here at Oulton Park. It's something a little different for you today, as this series likes to do. This will be the first set of races outside of North American circuits, so potentially something new for these drivers that all-American, maybe American-focused. So they will get to try their hand at this tricky British club track. I am joined tonight in the commentary booth, as always, by Alex Skinner. And doing the cameras and everything else that we need done behind the scenes is the excellent Marco Barbanera. So, Alex, we were told during the winner's interview from last time out at Road America that Oulton Park is property of Rob Hubrex. So far, this series, any road course that we've gone to has become property of Rob Hubrex. Do you think that we are going to see yet another set of victories claimed by Rob here, or will we finally see someone break through and win a road course race in this series whose last name is not Hubrex?
Well, for the first time this season, they've decided to come over to Engerland. In other words, to a track not that far from myself, actually, from where I'm based now. So, well, if I have anything to say about it, I'm going to put a curse on Mr. Hubrex and ensure that he isn't the one that takes the victory here. And, well, looking at the practice times, it seems that he's got a Brian Brutzi slightly faster than him at the moment. So, all things considered, I think we might be in for a race, Tyler.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure. Bit of a weaker turnout here for the series, but it is Valentine's Day, of course, here in the States still. I know you guys are already on to the 15th, but not to mention, I think the Daytona 500 is about to get back going. But we still have 11 drivers so far who are here and ready to do some racing. And as you mentioned, Brian Bruzzi is currently top of the timesheets with Rob Hubrex trailing him in second. So it hasn't been always wins from the pole for Rob. He has had to pass a couple cars every once in a while, but certainly he has been the dominant force in this championship outside of the Charlotte Oval races, where he was still able to pull off some pretty solid finishes. So will be very interesting to see if Rob can maintain his pace. As it stands right now, he's got about a 60-point lead, just shy of a 60-point lead in the championship standings over Kenny Schmid. Kenny just 1 point ahead of Daniel Lopez, with Jim McKendry and Jeremy Davis rounding out the top 5. As we are headed into the second half of this calendar. So definitely going to be interesting to keep track of the championship as we go along towards the end of this season. And certainly Rob has done a lot at this point to put himself in a strong championship position, but I'm sure Kenny Schmid et al. Will be chomping at the bit to try and knock Rob off his perch. Just coming to the close of practice here, and we will jump into qualifying. It's the typical sprint race format that you're familiar with from the road courses outside of Road Atlanta so far this season. So we have a 2-lap single car qualifying session. Then we will get a 15-minute race set from the qualifying field. After which we will have a 30-minute feature race, which will be set by the finishing order of race number 1. So there you see Rob Hubrex. He's out on track starting his qualifying run. Why don't you talk us around the track a little bit here, Alex, since it is closer to you after all for once.
Yep, of course, the Oulton Park circuit in Cheshire, one of the tighter circuits on the British racing calendar, run here with the British GT and the British Touring cars, to name the two big series that come here in terms of motorsport. And of course, it is a very difficult track in its own right. Obviously, turn 1 still a very difficult corner, and then you head down the hill into turn 2. It's a double drop. So basically, you know, it's like a step effectively going into the left-hander. of turn 2. You make your way down towards turn 3, which in these cars I have a feeling is barely a lift. I've not actually driven these cars around here yet, sadly. But then you head into the hairpin, of which is actually a very difficult corner because of how banked it is. It's effectively, I think it's about the same banking that you see at Bristol, except it's on a much tighter radius. So again, the car likes to get unsettled and it likes to wash out as you leave the exit at the corner. Similar to the banking change at Okayama, actually, is sort of in that sort of severity. The next part, so the majority of Sector 2 is full of chicanes and straights. Nothing really interesting to talk about. You know, you fire off, have to hit the brakes, not hit the curbs too hard, otherwise you will wreck the suspension of any Formula car that you come across. And you make your way into Sector 3, which is all a case of getting it smooth, keeping the line and keeping the momentum to make sure that the car doesn't wash too wide and that you don't cut too much and get yourself a slowdown. Apart from that, it's a relatively easy circuit to learn, a relatively difficult circuit to master, and, well, drivers are proving that already with the mistakes that we are seeing from some of these guys on their laps, little slides, little excursions off of the circuit, and it's definitely a track that's a lot harder to race at than most.
Certainly, Alex, and important to remember, any of those little slides that end up in the grass for these drivers is going to invalidate their lap times. And Oulton is certainly one of the more unforgiving tracks on iRacing for picking up those 1Xs and grabbing lap invalidations. Where we see Brian Bruzzi coming through right there is one in particular where you can, if you use all of that runoff, it's very easy to find yourself picking up a 1X, and at that point your qualifying lap doesn't count. And with only 2 chances to make something happen, it's going to be really important for these drivers to make sure they set the lap times that they're capable of. While we're waiting for the times to start rolling in, just want to let you know the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing League Board would like to thank you for watching this broadcast. We hope everyone is enjoying this great season of racing. The season is currently free to race for CKT members. In order to keep the race entry free while providing the fantastic hosted sessions, awards, and broadcasts, we are looking for sponsors. If you would like to sponsor Colorado Karting Tour iRacing League, please reach out at www.coloradokartingtour.com/contact for full details. The Colorado Karting Tour is also looking for race day track workers. Positions currently open are corner, timing, and scoring, as well as flag workers. Workers will be paid for their time and travel to each event. Please contact CKT for more details. Contact information, once again, is at coloradokartingtour.com/contact. So, at the moment, Rob Hubrecht sits atop the timing sheets with his first qualifying lap in the books, but he is unseated now by Brian Bruzzi, who was quick in practice, and by a mere 0.08 of a second is Brian on the provisional pole position. See a few other cars coming through now. Kenny Schmid sits third at the moment. Jim McKendry, a somewhat distant 4th place, perhaps just setting a banker lap before pushing on his second. We ride now on board with Rob Hubrecht as he heads through that tricky 3rd sector of Oulton Park that Alex was talking about here. Going to see if he can set a quicker time. He hasn't set any purple sectors on this lap, so he's going to really need to do something spectacular through the back section of track here if he is going to unseat Brian at the top of this timing tower. And that sector was not what he wanted to see, not his personal best. So we'll see as Rob comes across the line where he sits, and it's going to be slower. Almost a second off of the first lap he did. Nope, sorry, I misread that. That was quicker than the first lap he did, and he jumps to 7/1000ths of a second ahead of Brian Bruzzi. So Brian still on his second lap, and he has set a couple of purple sectors here. So Brian looking as though he wants to unseat Rob at the track. He claimed his own. Kenny Schmid is not going to get a second lap. That car is missing its front end. He is reset to the pit lane. Here comes Brian across the line. And he does not improve. In fact, he sets nearly an identical lap time to what he had before with a 1:34.834 there. But Brian is going to have to settle for what looks to be second place. All 10 of the 11 drivers have set both of their lap times at this point, just waiting on Max Dinda to set his 2 qualifying lap times, although he's going to run up against the time limit in this session fairly quickly. So he is on his first flying lap, so we'll see where this time puts him. And he's got one more opportunity should he finish before time runs out, which he should be able to do, although he isn't going particularly quickly. And I was mistaken, that was not a flying lap for Max. So likely only going to have time for 1 lap, assuming there is a hard limit on qualifying, which there usually is here in iRacing. But Max looks like he's taking it easy right now. Perhaps didn't get the practice that he wanted to, and just trying to get familiar with the track and the car at the moment. That is definitely not full pace for Max Dinda, I don't think, considering he's at almost a minute on this lap on the back straight here with quite a bit of track to go. So just learning the track, it seems, is Max Dinda. Hopefully he is able to get up to a more competitive speed during the race, but at the moment still finding his footing here at the tricky Oulton Park circuit. We will wait either for Max to complete his lap or for time to expire, whichever comes first. And then we will have the full lineup for you, but it is going to be Rob Hubrex on the pole of this race by 7/1000ths of a second over Brian Bruzzi. Phenomenally close at the front here, Alex, and sets up for what should be a really excellent race. And Max off the track there. That's going to do it for his qualifying effort. Just now, time ticking over. And we will...
I think Tyler a bit of an issue for Alex. So while we wait for him, if you want, I can keep you company as we can go through the starting grid for the first race.
Fantastic, Marco, and hopefully we get Alex back with us shortly. But at the moment, we do have the full qualifying results for you. Rob Hubrex puts it on pole with a time of 1:34.826, 7/1000ths off his tail is Brian Bruzzi. He will start on the outside of the front row. Kenny Schmid starts third. His time about 3.5 tenths off of Rob Hubrex. Daniel Fellows, I believe a new driver to the series, not a name I recognize. He will start in fourth. Roman Bykov starts fifth ahead of Jim McKendry. Robert Holubar will start in seventh ahead of Jeremy Davis. Floyd Kerr starts ninth. Vaughn Weber in 10th, and Max Dinda did not set a time. He will start in 11th place. The field gridding up. Fortunately, it's a fairly short pace lap around Oulton Park. They start kind of towards the back half of the track after the back straightaway, and the pace car is rolling. So we are all set to go here in race number 1 at Oulton Park for the Colorado Karting Tour. You can see Brian warming the tires there. Brian's been coming on strong. He didn't start the series out in attendance, but I believe his first round was at the Charlotte Oval race. And I believe, Marco, and I'm not sure if you have that information in front of you, but I believe he was one of our race winners there.
I think you are correct. We'll see, because it was an incredibly tight fight during qualifying, so it's going to be interesting to see if both of them can convert that great quali pace into race pace, or if someone else will take the advantage going into this first race out of 2. Pace car is in, here we go.
And as you said, Marco, the pace car is off, and it looks as though Rob has already taken off, and in fact, he has and taken Kenny Schmid with him. Kenny with a great start. Now, oh no, Roman Bykov comes together with Brian Bruzzi at the start there. I didn't quite see whether that was a result of Roman drifting wide or of Brian not realizing he was there, but Rob Hubrex is home free at the moment, though he does have Kenny Schmid tailing him as they head into the hairpin for the first time. All the Carnage has promoted Rob Holubar into third place, and Jim McKendry currently sits in 4th, which is good for Jim's championship chances, which have taken a bit of a hit in recent weeks. Jim was competing for podiums at the start of the season, but has had a couple of poor finishes as late. Currently sits 4th in the championship standings. Floyd Kerr is in 5th, although he is off the track there, and that's going to be a slowdown for Floyd. And there goes Jeremy Davis into 5th, and now Floyd goes for a spin. Jeremy almost did the same, and Daniel Fellows, I think, is going to get by Jeremy Davis as they head up the hill. Indeed, he has. So crazy first lap here at Oulton Park, but as is so often the case, Rob Hubrecht's in front of it all as he leads the way towards the conclusion of lap number 1. Kenny Schmid still in tow. Then it's another 2.5 seconds back to Rob Holubar, who has survived to start in, or to continue on in 3rd place. Here's a replay of the start, so we'll see what happened between Roman Bykov and Brian Bruzzi here as the pace car peeled off. We know Rob went pretty much as soon as you're allowed, and Kenny Schmid followed suit. Roman Bykov was trying to work his way through as well. Ooh, it looks like Roman caught a piece of the curbing there, which sent his car wide into Brian. Brian was holding him tight anyway, but looked as though Roman just lost a little bit of control riding over that curb on the inside there. So a shame for both of those drivers, but Brian's going to have to push and try and make up what positions he can, because we know he's got a lot of pace. But the finishing order for this race is going to set the grid for race number 2. And if Brian's going to have any chance of unseating Rob Hubrechts here, he's going to need to pull what positions he can to get a starting spot for the next race. There he is going by Jeremy Davis. Doesn't seem to be too badly damaged after that contact, which is good to see. I don't believe he's been down pit lane to take a fast repair. No, he is not, according to my information. So Roman Bykov has been down pit lane. Clearly he got the worst end of that damage, but Bruzzi continues on now in 6th place, and we'll see what positions he can make up as they continue along here. Now working on Rob Holubar, who slipped down to 5th at some point in all of that. Not sure what happened to Rob, but he's been passed by Jim McKendry and Daniel Fellows.
So we have another lap in the books on Ibrex, 35.0, fastest lap in the race. 7/10 of a second is Kenny Schmid, and Bykov now getting past Max Dinda after his stop. Another driver who was stopped is Von Weber, but he is already unfortunately 2 laps down, and we are about to have a nice scrap here between all these drivers. Holubar, Davis, and of course Bruzzi himself, who's on the comeback trail already up to 5th. I agree with you, Tyler, the car seems to be in good shape, which of course is always a good thing. Nothing he could have done there, unfortunately, for him. It's you know, wrong place at the wrong time for Brian. That's too bad, because I really wanted to see you know, what he would have been able to do at the front. As now a bit of a mistake from Rob Ibergs there. He lost a bit of time there at the chicane, but
I think Kenny Schmid might have. Sorry, Marco. I think Kenny Schmid might have made the same mistake or worse, because he closed right in as they exited the chicane. But then I saw a little wiggle in the background from Kenny, and all of a sudden he's a second behind Rob Hubrecht. So you're absolutely right, though. I think we would have had a fantastic battle between Brian Bruzzi and Rob Hubrecht. Hopefully we still get to see that in race number 2 as Brian is picking his way through. I'm pretty sure Rob Holubar there knew the sort of pace that Brian has and let him through. I don't know if he intended to let Jeremy Davis through, but he certainly took the position as that he was given and finds himself now in 6th place. That's pretty wide there from Daniel Fellows. Might be picking up a 1x there, and there is an incident limit in this race. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but these drivers are going to have to be wary of that. Less so in this race. It'll be tougher to pick up what I see as the 17 incident limit in race number 1, but certainly in the 30-minute race number 2. They're going to have to be very careful not to step over that limit, as that's around about an incident a lap, and certainly contact makes that worse, as Max Dinda having some trouble there. Looks like he is still coming to grips with this track Not sure what part of the track that was, actually, but found himself a bit wide and into the grass there. Here is Daniel Fellows, who, again, I don't have confirmation this is his debut, but as far as I can remember, this is his first time seeing him in the series, holding a strong 4th position and keeping tabs on Jim McKendry there. Jim up a few spots from where he started, 3 from his 6th place starting position up into 3rd. He is some 5 seconds back of Kenny Schmid, so really Jim at this point is just hoping to hold on to a podium finish, but it is going to be tough with the charging Brian Bruzzi in there behind them. Last lap, Brian was about a second quicker than Jim and a couple tenths quicker than Daniel Fellows, so both of these drivers putting the pressure on Jim McKendry, and Brian Bruzzi just set the fastest lap of the race, almost a second and a half quicker than Jim McKendry. So it's going to be a tall order for Jim to hold on to that podium position. Wouldn't be surprised to see it fall here in the next couple of laps if Bruzzi can work his way through.
And just before Bruzzi set the fastest lap of the race, it was Schmid who set the fastest lap of the race, but you know, that gap between Schmid and Ibrex is growing and shrinking and growing and shrinking, so Schmid needs to get I think a few good laps in a row if he wants to add to have a chance to attack for the race victory. By the way, this fight for the upside when a driver who's very fast makes a mistake early, we get a great comeback through the field, and that's exactly what Brian is doing. Let's jump on board with him.
Yeah, he is really putting the pressure here on Fellows, who is in turn putting the pressure on Jim McKendry. Great onboard shot from just one of the really fantastic circuits of the world. I am personally a sucker for any track that just kind of naturally ebbs and flows with the terrain it was built on. You know, a la Watkins Glen is another track that I feel like is great for following some really exciting natural terrain. And Oulton Park is just one of the coolest tracks, certainly in the UK. And Brian clearly has a solid handle on it as he is trying to work his way back to where he started. But it is difficult to pass. It's certainly a lot narrower than a track like Watkins Glen. So not easy for Brian, especially as he starts to face drivers who perhaps are a bit closer on pace than those towards the back of the grid.
Mr. Ibrex, Mr. Oulton Park is not running away. Au contraire, he's being caught by Schmid. Another tenth of a second he took away, and of course, you know, when he gets into the draft, especially here, if Schmid can avoid making mistakes there at the chicane, he can. I mean, we are barely past the halfway mark, so there is a long way to go. And here we go on the inside, a little bit of a look from Fellows, but straight away he put his car back in line. You know, extremely narrow place to try and go for a move there, Tyler. So I don't think, I think it was a smart move not to force the issue there. But both Fellows and Bruzzi are getting very, very feisty.
You're not wrong, Marco, but at the same time, if you can't make a move there, where are you going to make a move? Well, Fellows thinks he can make one here, and he pulls to the inside of Jim McKendry. The corner does sort of fall away from you, so you have to be careful to leave room. But they both Fellows and Bruzzi slip through there on Jim McKendry as Kenny Schmid we see running wide just a bit in turn number 1. Now Bruzzi makes the move on Fellows, and he is home free to chase down Kenny Schmid and Rob Hubrex. But that is going to be a tall order. 8 seconds in 5 minutes. I don't think even Bruzzi has that pace, even as he has been turning the quickest laps on the circuit. They haven't been that much quicker than the top 2. So looks as though this is what Brian Bruzzi is going to have to settle for, barring issue for the top 2. That's the lapped car of Max Dinda up ahead of them, I believe. So not a concern in the battle for position. There's Jeremy Davis running a solid 6th place at the moment. He hasn't been able to shake Rob Holubar, though. Like I said before, I don't know if Rob intended to let Jeremy through when he let Brian pass, but he is fighting hard for that position as Fellows is not content to let Bruzzi sail off into the sunset. He still wants a piece of Brian, and certainly seems to have some pretty solid pace here. So Fellows not able to make a move into that chicane, as you said, Marco. It's very narrow, not an optimal passing opportunity by any means, though. If it gets down to the final lap, you might see something happen there. But as it stands at the moment, Fellows will tuck back in behind Bruzzi. He's about a half second back, but that's been expanding and contracting as these drivers lap this Oulton Park circuit. Brian lapping at some extraordinary pace still, though some... well, actually, that last lap was 7/100ths quicker than Rob Hubrecht, so not going to close the lead down any appreciable amount at that pace, but his concern, I think, at the moment is holding on to that podium with Fellows in behind him.
You maybe, can get away with a bit of an aggressive move there at the chicane with a, a touring car or certainly a not in an open wheel car, but of course, as you were saying, it can be done. It needs luck, it needs bravery, and even though it's strange to say this, cooperation from your opponent, which of course when you're fighting for the lead is not certainly, or for a big position, is not exactly something you could bank on. So we will see, because so far it seems like Bruzzi has been able to create a little bit of a gap over Fellows, and the gap between Ibrex and Schmid is not going below the 7/10 of a second. It has been stationary there for quite a bit now. Let's see, they are lapping in the 135s, and my shockingly bad maths tell me that maybe we are going to have 2 more laps after this one.
I believe you are correct, Marco. It's going to be very close, and it could stretch to 3 more laps, just based on when Rob crossed the line. But certainly no more than 3. But you're absolutely right, and I think cooperation is an undervalued aspect of motor racing. But it really does take it takes 2 to tango, as they say, and a lot of the time you hear drivers complaining about drivers making poor moves or coming together, but a lot of the time it's stuff that could be helped with cooperation from the party being overtaken. And it sounds silly a lot of the times to just talk about it, but it's certainly a major factor, and it comes down to weighing the option of if I'm in the right but I'm out of the race, did I really gain anything? And it's something that all drivers weigh differently and are willing to push to different points to see it out. So it's something that is great about league racing and iRacing, because you race the same people all the time. These guys certainly very familiar with each other at this point, although we're speaking of Daniel Fellows here, and he is new to this series, but most of these guys have been racing with each other for a while. They're on endurance teams together. I know Jeremy mentioned to us that Rob Holubar is part of the iRacing endurance team that several of these guys are on, that they're going to be running the Bathurst 12-hour with. So these guys know how each other race, and they know when room is going to be given and when it's not. But it's that age-old question of do you really gain anything by being right while being wronged? So it's a topic I care a lot about, as you can probably tell. So I digress quite a bit there. But at the moment, that's Floyd Kerr getting it all wrong at the top of the hill there. He is missing his front wing, and that is going to cost him 8th position as Roman Bykov comes through.
And this is the final lap of the race.
Yes, very right, Marco, as the time has ticked over past 15 minutes. So definitely going to be the last lap here, as Rob Hubrecht is cruising up the hill. That gap back to Kenny Schmid only growing. Kenny, every time he comes through that second chicane, looks like he is pushing beyond belief to try and keep up with Rob right now. So certainly, I think Kenny might agree that this is one of Rob's better tracks. But uh, I'll be very interested to see how Brian Bruzzi can do in race number 2 with that third place grid spot starting in behind Rob Hubrex, assuming he can complete the last part of the lap safely and cross that line in third place, which he has now at this point. Daniel Fellows, a solid debut performance, comes home in 4th. Jim McKendry in 5th. This is the battle for 6th. It looks as though Jeremy Davis will be able to hold off Rob Holubar for 6th place. So a solid performance from Jeremy and Rob as well. Roman Bykov, unfortunately, involved in that turn 1 incident. One of those where if you're going to pin blame, you'd probably pin it on Roman, but it was uh, a tough case of running over the curbs. Floyd Kerr, oh boy, struggling with that damaged car,
Yeah,
crosses the line in dramatic fashion.
no, unfortunately for him, this was the previous lap. So,
Oh dear.
but I think he should be safe and still finish in 9th, because Weber and Dinda were both a couple of laps back, so he should be okay. Here comes Roman Bykov and here comes Max Dinda, so they are both home safe and sound, and this will be it for the first race, which of course now we'll make way to a 5-minute warm-up, and we will use this time to give you the unofficially official race results of race 1.
And surprise, surprise, Rob Hubrex is your race 1 winner. He remains undefeated on the road courses here in the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Series. Kenny Schmid comes home in 2nd after starting in 3rd, so a 1-position improvement for Kenny. Brian Bruzzi recovers after his lap 1, turn 1 spin to 3rd place, so he grabs the final spot of the podium. And will be in a good position to try and challenge Rob in race number 2. Daniel Fellows, a strong debut performance, as we mentioned. He finishes in 4th place ahead of Jim McKendry. Jeremy Davis finishes 6th in front of Rob Holubar. Roman Bykov comes home in 8th after his part in that lap 1 collision. Floyd Kerr, after falling off the track with a couple laps to go, brings it home in 9th. Vaughn Weber in 10th, and Max Dinda in 11th.
Okay, so this was race 1, and of course, as per tradition, the warm-up is scarcely attended, but we don't care. We have the time to chat about what we've seen in race 1, and I think that this victory for Ibrex could have been much tougher than what it was in the end, because I really wanted to see if Fellows and of course Bruzzi were able to not be involved in shenanigans at the start but keep the pace, and of course also, and let's not forget that he didn't really break away from second place until the final lap, so his dominance might not be as strong as it was in the past rounds. We'll see in race 2. Of course, now there is this big advantage for Bruzzi to start in the same line as him, as Ibrex, so he can maybe line up a better move and hopefully doesn't get involved in any kind of drama together with the other drivers. But and of course there is the experiences of having raced in race 1. To that extent, quick look at the weather, which has been fixed finally, because Tyler was reporting some pretty low temperatures that were outside
Cold
of the
temperatures.
of the iRacing basically temperature range, which goes down to 18 Celsius at a minimum for the track temperature. Now we are, and I apologize for that, but I know for sure that 96 Fahrenheit is not 18 Celsius or below that. Quite the opposite. We are on the other side of the we are around 40 degrees, maybe a bit less of track temperature, if I'm not correct. If I'm correct, if I'm not wrong. So,
Yep.
there's more, which is still pretty cool for being the 7th of August in sim date, lunchtime. But British weather can be unpredictable, and it's certainly not out of the picture to have a day like this in the UK in mid-August. So, but I mean, pretty good conditions to go racing. That was my point.
Yeah, and you're certainly right, Marco. This is not as cool as tracks get in iRacing, certainly, but not unreasonable. And these drivers seem to be doing all right. Just a couple of incidents with slipping around that we saw Floyd Kerr primarily. But just to go back to your point on race number 1, I think that it's funny to talk about how Rob could have had it much tougher, because honestly, I think that might have been his toughest challenge all season, with Kenny Schmid pushing all the way, because a lot of the time we've seen Kenny as the main rival in pace to Rob Hubrex, but he always seems to have the trouble befall him in the races. So good to see Kenny finally have a clean race of his own, and put the pressure on Rob Hubrex, because yes, at no point was Kenny close enough to make a pass happen on Rob, but at the same time, if Rob made a mistake at any point, Kenny would have been right there. I mean, he really kept him honest. So as we see Kenny doing some donuts in the middle of the second, is that the Hislop chicane or the other one? I don't remember, but Kenny doing some donuts there to celebrate his second place finish, and maybe celebrating a clean race as well. Really, the only time we've seen Rob behind the 8 ball, I think, was at Lime Rock, where he had some contact that he had to come back from. But there is your starting grid for race number 2. It's going to be 30 minutes here at Oulton Park, and the lineup is, of course, the finishing order from race number 1. So Rob Hubrex will lead them to the green flag alongside Kenny Schmid. Brian Bruzzi, perhaps with the better starting position here, as he just gets to follow Rob whenever Rob goes. So he starts in 3rd place. Expect him to factor into this one. Daniel Fellows will line up in 4th, ahead of Jim McKendry and Jeremy Davis in row number 3. Rob Holubar will line up 7th, next to Roman Bykov. Floyd Kerr starts in 9th, next to Vaughn Weber, and Max Dinda rounds out the grid. Take a breath, Marco, because I think this one is going to be interesting, and I don't want to jinx it, because we thought the first one was going to be exciting, and it was. We certainly got some action. It was exciting to see Brian working his way through the field, but man, I really want to see someone take the fight to Rob Hubrex, and I think Brian can do it.
Yeah, fingers crossed for a clean start, and let's hope for the best. This is going to be... I mean, you were right. Race 1 was very exciting, but could have been even more exciting. So let's see how it works as the pace car is about to enter, and the green will drop straight away. Here we go.
Indeed it has, and Rob takes off, though. Kenny got quite the jump there. You're allowed to go as soon as the green lights come on, so it's very possible that what Kenny Schmid did there is legal, though it looks a bit uninspiring, given the iRacing rules. And Brian has challenge from Fellows there as he slips through into 3rd place. So pretty much the opposite of what we expected, isn't it, Marco? We were expecting Rob and Brian to take off, and they've both lost positions at the start of this race.
Yeah, very, very interesting. As also in the back you see massive fight, and now Bruzzi round on the inside. My apologies, go side by side. A mistake from Fellows probably, because he had no speed coming out of the corner there, and that quickly Bruzzi back into the podium spot, and now trying to hunt down Rob Hubrex for 2nd places in the back. Bykov and Davis are going at it for P number 8.
Something must have happened to Davis at the start, because he would have lined up in 6th, I believe, after his race 1 finish. So perhaps just a poor start for Davis, but he finds himself back a few positions. Here is the look back from Rob Hubrex at Brian Bruzzi, and Kenny Schmid will be hoping that these two fight hard and fight for a while so that he can pull a gap. As we mentioned, his pace in race 1 was not bad at all, as, oh no. Connection troubles for Rob Hubrex. He's back on track, but that's always a concern there. He did register an official lap time, which means he wasn't blinked out for too long on iRacing, as far as iRacing is concerned. But at the moment, Kenny Schmid is pulling away. He set the quickest lap of the race that time. I have to believe if Brian is able to get by Rob Hubrex, that will not be the case much longer. But Brian still has to get by Rob, doesn't he?
Absolutely, absolutely. And now locking his front right, they are so evenly matched. You know, it's so refreshing to see that. And the beauty of league racing sometimes is not just the camaraderie and. Oh man, that was fellows going very deep into the chicane, and now they're going side by side.
And Hubrex running wide.
Yeah.
There was Hubrex running wide at the exit, and that's allowed Brian Bruzzi to get the kind of the preferred line through the chicane, but he's in the grass.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Massive smash.
And Brian spins it and collides with Fellows. That was a shame. Both of those cars were quick, but unfortunately Brian Bruzzi just lost control on that slippery grass, and unfortunately Daniel Fellows was the innocent bystander there. Nothing Rob Hubrex did wrong here, I don't think. Brian tried to take that outside line and just carried a little bit more speed than he intended, I think, and that is a hard hit to the front of Daniel Fellows' car. So,
oh, he's crashed again. Disaster. Big disaster for him, for Brian.
Yeah, so that is race over for Brian Bruzzi and Daniel Fellows. A real shame for two quick cars. It promotes Jim McKendry to a podium position once again, though. We'll have to see if he can hold on to that. And so it's not Brian who we thought would be giving Rob the challenge for the win here, but in fact it is Kenny Schmid, and perhaps that's on us because Kenny has absolutely had pace at pretty much every track we've gone to. But what he needs to do now is run qualifying laps pretty much, because you better believe that Rob Hubrex is going to be coming after him.
So let's keep an eye on that clock. Remember that this race we doubled the distance from 15 to 30 minutes. And Schmid is absolutely on point. He is now being freed from the shackles of being the following car, and bike of where is he? Oh, he's going to ride. Kills a cone and then gets hit, and then someone goes wide. It was Floyd
Kerr going wide. Jeremy Davis ran into Bykov there, or at least nearly hit him. It was Bykov who was doing a bit of rally crossing through the second chicane. Jeremy had to slow up there to avoid him. And I don't think either of them got any actual damage from that. It was just iRacing's collision detection taking a second to update. We'll get a replay here. Thanks, Marco.
I first want to see if Ibrex had any kind of contact in that melee at the chicane. I don't
believe he did. I'm pretty sure he was definitely clear there.
Okay, perfect.
As Brian came back across. Yeah, so Rob is in good shape to continue on. But now what happened to Bykov? Oh, it was Floyd Kerr who started that all, and Bykov spun to avoid him. And there was the brief non-contact between Jeremy Davis and Roman Bykov. But yeah, it was all started by Floyd Kerr running a bit wide and losing it on the grass there. Was that something happening to Rob Hubrex, Marco? Because he's suddenly 2.5 seconds back from Kenny Schmid. I thought I saw him just a little sideways coming out of that chicane. It's just been consistently dropping.
Yeah, he's been dropping. Let's see, compared to McKendry. He's gaining on McKendry.
Interesting. So, definitely not the pace we saw out of race one from Rob Hubrex. Maybe it was just a matter of dirty air slowing up Kenny Schmid, and Kenny actually has the pace. Or perhaps Rob has a little bit of damage, but at the moment, it is all Kenny Schmid out front in this race, and he's opened up almost 3 seconds now over Rob Hubrex.
Let's see, another lap in the books.
Yeah, and Kenny closing in on the lapped car there of Brian Bruzzi. He's reset to the pits and taken his faster pair.
Almost 1 second
yeah.
gained Wow, this is impressive from Schmid.
I'm pretty sure that I saw Rob Hubrex in the grass at some point on that lap. I'm not entirely sure that that was Rob's true pace. Certainly the lap before, the gain was a lot smaller for Kenny Schmid. So I think, I'm not certain, but I think Rob is pushing extra hard right now, perhaps to try and prove that this is truly Oulton Park property Rob Hubrex, because we're going to make sure that he rues those words if he does in fact lose here to Kenny Schmid.
And now,
but
all of a sudden, in this lap, he's taking almost 3.5 tenths of a second away in the first 4 sectors to Schmid.
Yeah, I think that has to do with just the fact that he was making mistakes and pushing too hard. Again, I didn't see, I didn't get a good shot because it was just, yeah, it was just as we came back from replay that it looked like Rob was off the track. But even if he loses a little bit in these last couple sectors, it's still nowhere near the second he lost on the lap before. So we will get the results of this lap, and he gained just a little bit, so he must have had a good final sector there, because he would have been down a little bit coming into it. But yeah, that's actually Rob's quickest lap of the race. So perhaps he just had a little dirt on the tires, or the tires were overheated just a bit. Now he's got him back under him. He can begin to mount the charge. He's got time to do it. Only 8.5 minutes into this 30-minute race, so definitely time for Rob Hubrex to close that gap back up, though I think he might have made another mistake in turn number 1, because suddenly that gap is 3 seconds again.
We're just about ready to get back Alex. Huh?
Well, you're saying 3 seconds for Rob Hubrex is, yeah, a pretty tough challenge. I wouldn't think so, especially with the pace that he has been showing here today. And yes, everybody, I am back. Thank you, Marco, for taking over in my unplanned absence. But of course, I've been keeping up with what I can, and these guys absolutely racing hard. Obviously, currently looking at Bykov and Holobar fighting as they come up towards the 3rd sector, out of that middle sector chicane fest, and on to one of the final few straights we have on the circuit. Up the hill, over the crest. Set yourself up for the braking over the second part of this, the left-hander. And it's double apex right-hander as that is Jim McKendry off the circuit without a front wing.
And Jim was well clear in 3rd place, had a podium position all but locked up, and he's thrown it away there. What happened?
I think he's done what is very easy to do, clip the curb on the inside. No, he's just locked up and gone straight on. Oh no. It's very rare to see that happen there, and he's lucky to only get away with front wing damage from that impact. Most cars would have had the front left suspension ripped off. But back to that fight between Holobar and Bykov, and these two still trying to go at it as they make their way down towards the start of Sector 2.
Yeah, that looked a bit strange to me with Jim. I don't know if there was maybe something with his wheel or what, but he really did just go straight off there. Here's what Rob Holubar saw. No, there is the onboard for Jim McKendry. So that was strange. I don't know. It didn't look like any typical, hardware failure that I can think of, but he just kind of almost like he froze for a second and sailed it off. Now, what's happened to Kenny Schmid? Ooh, that was close.
Almost the very big moment for Kenny Schmid.
I had seen him do that a couple of laps before. I knew that he was pushing through there, and that time it nearly bit him a lot harder. He will lose some time on that lap for sure, almost a second.
Yeah.
But that could have been a whole lot worse for Kenny Schmid. He's lucky to have gotten away with what he did.
No, it is very, very easy to actually drop the rear and spin it round if you get on the AstroTurf on the exit there. So it is just a very difficult corner to recover from. So great job for Kenny Schmid to regain the car from that part of the circuit.
And this battle
Meanwhile,
rages on. Yeah, this battle rages on between Rob Holubar and Roman Bykov, and with McKendry's issues, this is now for a podium position that these two are fighting. Rob Holubar doing a solid job here to hold off Roman Bykov, who we know is quick. He qualified towards the front of race number 1 before his early contact with Brian Bruzzi, but he is working his way back from a poor starting position. What's happened to Rob Hubrex?
oh, don't tell me that Rob's made a mistake as well at the chicane.
Well, he's now 3
Over
seconds.
curb. Car did not want to turn in properly. Tried to over-rotate on him. He was very quick hands to correct that car where he did. Because that corner is slightly off camber as well. It doesn't look it, but it is very ever so slightly off camber. So if you get the car on that and it kicks out, it is very difficult to save it. So great reaction time by Rob Hubrex to get that car back in a straight line even, let alone keep it on the racing surface and only drop about, what, half a second at most.
Second and a half. He had close to 2 seconds, yeah. And that's sort of what's been happening to Rob Hubrex is he can put in, solid lap times that match what Kenny Schmid is doing, but he's just made more mistakes than we're used to. And it's not, race-ending mistakes like we've seen from, Jim McKendry or Brian Bruzzi, but it's just little mistakes that cost time, and he needs to cut those out if he's going to close that gap to Kenny Schmid now with about 16 and a half minutes remaining in this race.
Yeah, and speaking of gaps closing, that fight for third down to under 0.2 of a second. We saw Bykov having a look. Lock up on the inside right for Bykov, but he might actually get a decent run. No, it's going to go the way of Holubar. Make their way up towards the chicane, looking from the back of the third place driver. Over the curves, Bykov is so confident in that chicane over those curves. He really closes up, but still, Holubar is able just to get that traction out there, able to be a bit more confident on the throttle. We'll see through the chicane. How tight do you dare take it to not clatter the entire barrier on the inside? Such an evenly placed little barrier as well. Very easy to hit in a GT car. Not so easy to hit in a Formula car, at least. And of course, they make their way up through Sector 3, through the left-hander on the brakes. Seem to be pretty equal on the brakes through there. Maybe a bit of an earlier braking from Bykov, just that particular time round. 35.3 best lap for Fellows as well, so he's slowly starting to get some pace under his belt again. And you can see that Holubar takes a wider entry line into the final corner, which is actually a very smart move in these sort of cars, because you don't want to be too tight to the inside due to the way that the track falls away from you off camber, and it just unsettles the car so slightly, as you saw as we rode on board with Roman Bykov. So he's taking lines that are sort of disadvantaging him at the moment, is Bykov, and that's all Holubar needs to keep thinking of is, well, if I take these lines, I'm going to stay ahead of him.
Yeah, while we've been watching this battle, Rob Hubrex has pulled about half a second back on Kenny Schmid. He's now 2.8 seconds off of that. Further down the field, Jeremy Davis holds 5th place by about 4 seconds over Floyd Kerr. Weber sits 7th, and he is some 25 seconds clear of Jim McKendry. So pretty comfortable is Mike Weber with that 7th place. McKendry having repaired his car, trying to gain some of that time back. Daniel Fellows obviously involved in that incident at the chicane with Brian Bruzzi. Those two are only 2 seconds apart in the battle for 9th, but I'm sure both of them would much rather be fighting and feel as though they should be fighting for a much higher position. Max Dinda currently a lap down. He is continuing on, though, and sits in 11th place. So as we head into the second half of this race, just want to take a second to remind you, the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing League Board would like to thank you for watching this broadcast. We hope everyone is enjoying the great season of racing. This series is currently free to race for all Colorado Karting Tour members. In order to keep the race entry free while providing the fantastic hosted sessions, awards, and broadcasts, we are looking for sponsors. If you would like to sponsor CKT iRacing League, please reach out at coloradokartingtour.com/contact for full details. As Bykov goes by Holubar, it looked as though Holubar led him. Yeah, I think it must have been a slowdown for Rob Holubar there.
Yeah, slightly too wide on the exit of T1. Instantly caught that slowdown. Had to hit the brakes to get it served as quick as possible because he knows that Bykov is quick enough to be able to pull away from him potentially. So get it served as quick as possible and get on the back of him as quick as possible. So it'll be interesting to see now actually what Bykov can do. He's got 15 minutes to potentially get over a second a lap if he wants to get near Rob Hubrex. So, well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, certainly it looked as though Bykov had a bit more pace than Rob Holubar throughout most of that battle as Max Dinda's gone for another spin. Not sure where on the track that is. Last corner, thank you, Marco. So, I probably dipped a couple of wheels in the grass on the exit of that corner, spun him around, but not a great day for Max Dinda. Clearly not a track that he is super comfortable with. And he is reset to the pit lane. As we see, the lead gap hasn't changed all that much the last couple of laps. A 10th pull there from Rob Hubrex. It did come down earlier while we were watching the battle between Bykov and Holubar. But it's stabilized just a bit, around 2 3/4 seconds or so. Another note, just while we have the chance, the Colorado Karting Tour is looking for race day track workers. Positions currently open are corner, timing and scoring, as well as flag workers. Workers will be paid for their time and travel to each event. Please contact CKT for more details. Contact information, once again, is at coloradokartingtour.com/contact. So there is the overall gap between Kenny Schmid and Rob Hubrex. And you can see a few laps ago when they were trading off mistakes, that gap ebbing and flowing. Now it's been a bit more consistent, and indeed it has been only minor gains for Rob Hubrex the last few laps, and that's exactly what Kenny Schmid needs to do. And in fact, he has opened it up a bit more. Suddenly it's back up over 3 seconds for a moment. So this is what Kenny Schmid needs to do. He doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't need to set the timing screen on fire. He just needs to be consistent and not make mistakes, because it doesn't seem as though Rob Hubrex has the overwhelming pace that we thought he might this weekend.
Well, you thought he might. I was pretty confident that it would go to someone else. And the fastest lap for Brutzi, 34.7. That is actually insanely fast, especially compared to what we have seen today, Tyler. So yeah, Brutzi slowly making his way, slowly but surely, finding some pace in that car.
It's a real shame, Alex, with the couple of incidents early on in both races that took him out of contention, because we really felt that he was going to be the guy to challenge Rob Hubrex. Certainly his qualifying pace was phenomenal. Now what's happened to Von Weber, excuse me, here in the chicane. Ooh, that's a narrow entry, and that's going to cost him on exit just a little bit, but he continues on without dipping a wheel in the grass. So
he was lucky to not hit that inside tire, the tire bundle actually, as well, with how close he got to the inside there, with how shallow that was. So
yeah, likely
the car staying straight basically.
Yeah, I think he just carried a bit too much speed on entry and knew he kind of had to straight line it and hold the brakes to not risk hitting that tire barrier. You just had to give up the corner. But Kenny Schmid putting in the laps and extending that gap slowly but surely now over Rob Hubrex. So coming down to crunch time, less than 10 minutes to go as we see Max Dinda off track once again. But Rob is going to need something from Kenny, I think, to make this happen at this point. I just don't think the pace is there to catch him on pace alone, as we see the battle for 9th place brewing. As, oh no, that's Dinda off the track again. That's going to be a slowdown for Fellows. Dinda just trying to get out of the way at this point, and Brutzi continues his charge as he wants that 9th place from Daniel Fellows.
It'll be interesting to see if Brutzi can actually get past Fellows as well, because we haven't got much longer, that 10 more minutes left in this race here. He gets so much, it takes such a wider mid part of that corner, it does not help the car at all. You see just the understeer, it wanting to push itself out wide. It's what I was talking about during qualifying. God, that was very close to the time handle, but such a beautiful line for Brutzi. Meanwhile, Vaughn is off once again. I think he just Actually, I don't know how he went off there, actually. I'd be interested to see how, because it's a very rare place for a driver to go off. Meanwhile, we will get a replay of what happened there on board. To the inside, on the brakes. Do I have a feeling he took too much curb on the inside?
Too much.
Oh
Yeah.
no, the rear end's getting loose.
Yeah, he dropped the
Ooh.
left wheels on the grass on the exit of that corner. I've done that before. He was lucky to catch that, honestly, though, because it can get really sketchy when you dip wheels off on the left side there. But this is the battle, the closest battle on track at the moment for 9th place between Fellows and Brutzi, the two who came together earlier in the race. Certainly not a no-fault incident after Brian spun off, but regardless, these two definitely set back from where they probably should be on pace. As you mentioned, Brian Brutzi has the quickest lap of the race, about 10th and a half clear of Kenny Schmid's lap time. Kenny did a 34.92 to Brian's 34.75. So definitely heating up here. I don't think Daniel quite has the pace of Brutzi, but it's so hard to pass around Oulton Park. There's just really not that many good overtaking zones. So Brutzi's going to need to stay close and seize any opportunity that presents itself to make the move happen on Daniel Fellows here. As I saw Davis
track. Looked like Fellows got a bit loose through there. This is going to allow Brutzi right onto the back of him, Tyler. To the inside will go Fellows, and that's going to be job done. That's all he needed. I thought that Brutzi was going slightly too deep into the first part of into the chicane, and I was proven right. The rear end kicking itself out on the exit, and just gave Fellows gave Brutzi all he needed to get past. Sorry. But absolutely beautiful opportunism there from Brutzi, seeing where he went up, where Fellows went wide, and just bringing it straight through. Meanwhile, having a look again at our leader.
Yeah, the gap's come down just a little bit, but half a second over a couple of laps, or even over one lap at this point, is not what Rob Hubrex wants to see, because he's going to need 5 more laps at that pace, and only a 10th on lap 15. So 5 more laps, half a second a lap, is not going to be enough for Rob Hubrex. So he really needs some help from Kenny Schmid. He did seem to close a bit through the first sector there, but Kenny opens it back up a little bit as they head downhill. Into the hairpin now goes Kenny Schmid. That gap staying pretty stable at around 2 1/4 seconds. There is Roman Bykov currently holding that 3rd place on the podium. He has been able to gap Rob Holubar, so that looks pretty. Looks like it should be pretty in hand for Roman Bykov. There is Rob Holubar. Still, Rob doing an excellent job here to hold on to that 4th position. He just doesn't quite have the pace of Roman Bykov. There's Jeremy Davis. Now, will he potentially contend with Rob Holubar? Judging by their last lap time, no, but over the last several, a couple more mistakes like we saw on lap 11 and 12 for Holubar, and that could definitely happen, but it is going to take something, some sort of mistake from Rob for Jeremy to close that 4-second gap. There's Floyd Kerr. Having a bit quieter of a race too, and that's probably a good thing for him. Had a couple of issues in race number 1 and ultimately didn't finish. So a solid 6th place as well.
Oh, you wrecked!
Yeah, we know Rob.
Coming out of the final corner.
We know Rob has been pushing, and that's going to cost him considerable time there.
I know exactly what he's done. I didn't have to see it slightly too wide. It's kicked the rear out, and all it's done was the fast hands Hubrex once again. Yeah, understeers.
That was more than slightly too wide. That was very, very wide from Rob Hubrex. That might be race. I don't want to, hand it to Kenny Schmid yet, but
he makes one mistake. I think that is game, set, and match to Kenny Schmid. The first time that he has been on the top step of the podiums for a long time now, actually. Now that I think of it. So
yeah, he won race 1 at Charlotte, I believe.
That's it. It's been a while since he last won a race here on the Colorado Karting Tour. And great to see him back up the front of the field. Less issues, less mistakes, less contact, and Well, this is the Kenny Schmid I think that we're a bit more used to from what we saw at the start of the season there, Tyler.
Yeah, Rob, though, taking some chunks out in Sector 3 and Sector 4. He's not giving up yet. He's only going to have, what, 2 or 3 more laps to do it, but he's still pushing, though. He lost a little bit back in Sector 5. It does seem that Kenny manages to gap him just a little bit in the second half of the track. We'll see if that holds true for Sector 6. Of course it does not. Kenny can't allow me to be right there, nor can Rob, but they make their way out of the final corner. I believe we're going to get 2 more laps out of this one. So this will be the penultimate lap. That gap's under 2 seconds for the first time in a while. Rob pushing hard out of that final corner. He closed ultimately over half a second on that lap, but a couple more laps to that is still not going to be enough. He's going to need a mistake from Kenny Schmid to make that happen, or to find some really magnificent pace is Rob Ubrecht.
I think this might be a case of these two are just chilling out now, unless obviously Kenny does make a mistake with 2 to go. Slight little wiggle coming out of the hairpin. I saw that, Kenny. Keep it calm, keep it steady. You know that you won't lose any time. 2 tenths lost, though. That's how much a little wiggle out of there can cost you, especially with it being such an important traction zone. It'd be interesting to see as I head towards Sector 4. Yeah, Kenny managing to gain 700ths only. Traffic, not going to be a problem for these two. They're going to have a clean run up to the finish. And yeah, 1 more to go at the end of this lap. So Kenny will see that white flag fly, and he will be thinking to himself, it's been a long time coming, but we're finally going to get it.
Oh, yeah. Don't be counting those chickens, Alex, because Rob is not going to stop pushing until they cross that line for the checkered flag. And we saw how much he gained in the final sector. We saw how much he gained in the final sector last time. Doesn't look like it's going to be quite as much this time. No, it's only half a tenth. So a second and a half for Rob to find in 1 lap. That's a tall order. Kenny runs a little wide in turn 1. That's going to close the gap a bit. Bring Rob within towing distance, but not really many places to capitalize on a tow around here. This is pretty much the only one. The only straight long enough to really get up to the speeds that you would need to grab that tow. They head around the corner and into the hairpin does Kenny Schmid. That gap holding now at about a second and a quarter. Rob pushing hard through the hairpin, but it costs him a little bit on exit as Kenny will pull the gap just out a little bit into the first of the 2 chicanes. We'll see. Rob's been pretty quick through those chicanes, but actually this time he's lost about a tenth of a second. They head down now on the backstretch towards the second chicane. Kenny can breathe fairly easy as this has been his strong suit. He keeps it off the grass. That's the important thing there. Through up the hill, that gap fluctuating only a tenth or so. Looks as though Kenny can be confident as he heads into the final corner. No need to push too hard and run wide as we saw Rob Ubrecht do a couple of laps ago. As he is on the break, we ride on board with Kenny for the final run to the line. It was a big send from Rob given how much that gap closed into the corner, but you can see Kenny weaving excitedly as he will cross the line. Finally, somebody has broken the stranglehold on road course victories that Rob Ubrecht held. And Roman Baikov has 1 corner to go before he seals himself a podium position. Rounding the final corner now.
Been dethroned. And it happens at the non-American circuit on the calendar. I am happy. Roman Baikov finishing 3rd. I'm not surprised with the images we're seeing on track. I'm really not surprised.
I think Kenny Schmid might be a little excited there, but he is doing some donuts. Well-earned donuts, I have to say. Jeremy Davis rounds out the top 5. Floyd Kerr, as we said, a quiet race, but that's a good thing after race number 1 for him, so he comes home in 6th. Looks as though Vaughn Weber will seal up that 7th place. Nobody a lap down has crossed the line yet, so it is still a fight on for 8th, 9th, 10th. I think Jim is pretty well clear of Brian Ruxey, and Brian, I believe has a second or so in hand over Daniel Fellows. There is Jim McKendry around the final corner. He will cross the line for 8th position. And Brian Bruzzi will stay clear of Daniel Fellows as they cross the line. Bruzzi in 9th, Fellows 10th, and Max Dinda rounds out the field. So, what a performance from Kenny Schmid. We will get those official results up for you in just a moment. But really, really excellent race there. Kenny Schmid is your winner after a titanic battle with Rob Hubrechts. Rob ends up 1.3 seconds back of Kenny Schmid. Roman Bykov rounds out your podium. Rob Holubar finishes in 4th. Jeremy Davis is the back end of the top 5. Floyd Kerr comes home in 6th. Vaughn Weber in 7th. Jim McKendry in 8th. Brian Bruzzi and Daniel Fellows come home 9th and 10th after their clash earlier on in the race. And Max Dinda brings it home in 11th. We will have some interviews for you. I believe we have our race winner ready to go. Kenny Schmid, feature race winner. How you doing?
Well, feeling really good, that's for sure. Finally got a win in a main, and it wasn't easy. Rob was keeping the pressure on the whole race. I really couldn't make any big mistake. I made a couple of small ones here and there, and that was kind of okay. But man, he kept the pressure up, and overall, a tough 45 minutes in the heat. I couldn't close up to him. I was stuck. Probably a second behind him for the whole heat. And I knew, though, there's a lot of aero wash in these cars, so I was struggling behind him. I figured, look, if I can get ahead of him at the start, that would be a good thing. And I kind of lucked out, and yeah, I was able to stay out front. So really, really happy about that. I've come close a couple times this season, so it's nice to bring home the win.
Yeah, talking on your race one, we did mention it. It seemed to have been the the kind of toughest challenge that Rob has faced so far. It feels like he's had a couple races where he's been able to just kind of sail away, and we know you've had your fair share of troubles on the road courses, but that was really an excellent performance there. We could tell you were pushing because that gap kept ebbing and flowing as it did through most of the second race as well. But did you feel like there was anything you could do, barring a mistake from Rob in race number one, or was it just a matter of pushing as hard as you could and seeing where you ended up?
I promise you, in that first race, I was pushing like 105, 110%, like the whole race. It was actually pretty silly. I probably should have toned it down a hair just because there's no points in the heat. Um, but at the last race, Rob proclaimed himself the king of Oulton Park, and it kind of lit a fire under my ass, if you will, to dethrone the king, or at least give it, all I had. And like I said, it was especially tough just because of that aero wash when you're, especially with the chicanes at this circuit. You really, really, these cars don't have too much downforce, but it does hurt. And then you start getting into the tires and things like that. So. Yeah, I was pushing real hard in that heat. Actually, really surprised that he wasn't able to catch up to me in the final, just because I think he had more pace than me, at least in the heat. So I'm curious if he didn't maybe have some underbody damage or something like that. I'll definitely talk to him later about that. But yeah, definitely surprised that he didn't kind of close the gap to me in the final. But the pressure was still on for that whole race. I couldn't let up and I couldn't make a mistake. So um, that's what I like winning. That's when I like coming in first. When you got someone right on your butt and you're challenged for 30 minutes. That's it. It just feels really nice.
Yeah, don't worry, Kenny. We made sure to mention Rob's proclamation of ownership over Oulton Park a few times in the off chance that he didn't win today. So we'll make sure to give him a good ribbing in his interview as well. But looking forward on the schedule, Charlotte Roval. Uh, does that excite you at all, or are you a bit worried headed there next time out?
Love the Roval. I love the Roval and I love Sebring. And Rob has told me that he does not like the Roval. So, but I wonder if that's accurate because, right, he said he was real good here at Oulton Park. So I'm kind of maybe he'll wipe the floor with me at the Roval. Maybe he's just playing reverse psychology. But no, I like the Roval, and Sebring is great. Double points because it's an hour-long race. Hopefully at Sebring, when I come into the pits, I don't speed in the pits and get a penalty, which is what actually happened to me at Road Atlanta, which is kind of unfortunate. But I won't make that same mistake twice. So hopefully some chance here at the end of the season to maybe bring home a couple more wins, and at a minimum, a good showing, and just fight as hard as I can and give Rob as much competition as I can.
Well, fantastic, Kenny. Congratulations once again. And anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, the Colorado Karting Tour and the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing League for sponsoring this series. To you guys, Apex Racing, for doing the broadcast. Always a fantastic time. And this week particular, just to Rob, and all the other competitors here as well. But it's always really fun when you have someone else that you're really equally matched with, and you can have a really good race. Even if you're not winning, it's really, that's what it's all about, is that hard, fun racing where you're giving it your all, and at the end of the day, you just see where things turn out. So obviously, it's better when you win. I'm super happy about today. Really, really thrilled about it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season as well.
Well, excellent. We certainly look forward to seeing you next time out at the Charlotte Roval. And congratulations once again to your feature race winner for tonight, Kenny Schmid, everybody. And looks like we only have one more interview for you, but Alex, I'm sure you would love to talk to our heat race winner, and perhaps no longer in possession of ownership of Oulton Park, Rob Hubrex.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Well, we'll cut to the chase, Rob. I'd like the crown, thank you. No, I'll take the crown off your head. I'll pass it on to Katie later on. Although you can at least take some solace in the fact you did win the heat race, but of course the second race of the I'm the king of Oulton Park, don't you know? I think apparently you've been saying that you're not that good at the Roval, so I'll expect you to win by about 2 laps next time out. Then should I, Rob, or are we expecting another sort of version of today?
Oh man, I guess my biggest lesson here is I gotta be humble, because obviously last week I claimed that I was really fast at this track, which I mean, I still think I am, but Kenny was on pace with me today, and huge congratulations to him to putting me in my place there. um, he and I still, I think, were really the class of the field there, though. I don't know what the margin to third was, 20 odd
About
seconds.
20 odd seconds, yeah.
Yeah. So, but great job to him. I'm happy that he finally got a win in this series. He's been close a few times. He's definitely had the pace for it before, and just hasn't quite had the luck. So I'm honestly very happy that he was. If anyone was going to put me in my place at Oulton Park, I'm happy it was Kenny who would do it.
This is Rob Hubrex trying to save face from his comments last time out, remember, ladies and gentlemen. But no, of course, both races pretty hectic and but pretty quiet for you. Obviously either being chased or being the chaser. Do you more enjoy these sort of races where you've got someone that is going to be with you, or you're going to be trying to catch, or do you sort of prefer the ones where it's like, yes, nice Sunday drive here at a name X circuit that you happen to be quick at?
I mean, I like both. I really enjoy a tense fight, a tense battle with someone who I can trust, which is definitely what the heat race was. I mean, Kenny was right there with me. He was faster in some corners. I was faster in other corners, and I think it's always fun. But you kind of tense up in those moments. I've definitely learned to relax a little bit more in kind of tense fights like that. But I think it definitely put on a really good show for the viewers. So I'd say both. I'll take either one, honestly.
Yeah, I think we all can agree it was a very, very fun set of races today. And obviously, as you said, you don't like the Roval too much. So, as I said, I'll expect to see you win by like 2 laps next time out. But of course, we do head there. What do you not like about the Roval? Why do you not feel so quick there?
I'm not sure if I dislike it necessarily. It's just I don't feel like I've ever been super fast at that track, and I think that it's going to be really challenging in these open wheel cars. There's some really big curbs that can probably screw up your car pretty bad if you hit them. Even though they're very inviting to drive over, but I think that with this car we're going to have to be super careful. With the curbs and everything, and there's just some weird geometries I've never been able to figure out, like the exit up onto the banking. When you first go up on the banking during the lap, I think I've never quite been able to nail that. I always feel like I'm either overdriving it massively or I'm underdriving it massively. It is a fun track though. I'm not saying I necessarily dislike it. I think it's just one that I haven't raced a ton in the past, and is definitely going to be a bit of a learning curve.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You want to be Rob Hubrex next time out at the Roval? There you go. Be quick onto the oval, and he will not have anything for you.
We'll see about that.
Rob, before we let you go back to your adoring fans, do you have anyone you'd like to thank at all?
Yeah, as always, thanks to you guys for putting on the broadcast. These are always such high quality broadcasts, and I think it's awesome that we get to share this racing with our friends and family out there. And of course, as always, thank you to CKT and Point Karting for putting this on. It's great to be able to kind of race with some of my CKT friends in the off season. Definitely looking forward to getting the real life season going. But in the meantime, this is really quite a fun time, and I think I think it gives us a great thing to do in the off season, and maintain that community. So yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Your heat winner, Rob Hubrex, and your feature race second place finisher for the day, Rob Hubrex. So thank you very much, Rob, for coming and joining us. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time out.
Thank you.
Tyler. We have come to the end of another race, and I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, it was real fun keeping track of that battle between Kenny and Rob, and a couple of other battles through a lot of that heat race. Certainly Rob Holubar and Roman Baikov had some great racing in there. Of course, Brian Bruzzi and Daniel Fellows. Daniel had some real pace for his first appearance in this series. It was quite enjoyable for me, and I'm sure you would agree with that once you got your technical issues sorted. So yeah, we are rapidly approaching the end of this season. As the drivers mentioned, just 2 more races for this Colorado Karting Tour season. We've got next time out at the Charlotte Roval, where Rob Hubrex is not as confident. And we've got the endurance race at Sebring to close it out, which should be super exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. But that will do it for us today here at Oulton Park for round 5 of the Colorado Karting Tour. From everyone here at Apex Racing TV, I've been Tyler Newitt along with Alex Skinner and Marco Barbanera. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.